Okay, greetings everyone. My name is Constantinos Pissourios. Yes, Pissourios. And I am an illustrator, a professional illustrator. And I am the illustrator behind the graphic novel called Trombone Man, SKA'S Fallen Genius. And it's about a trombonist from Jamaica that he had a really tragic life, but he was a genius in his instrument. So we created this graphic novel to acknowledge his life as a musician. I'm specializing in reggae and sound system culture for the last 10 years as an illustrator. And this happened because I love reggae music and I love illustration as well. So those two passions of mine, they got married 10 years ago and they live happily ever after. And I'm really happy about this. And this is how I met Adam, basically, because he was looking for an illustrator, and I was really wanted to get involved with comics. So through social media, we found the opportunity to meet. I will not give any other spoilers. I will let Adam say the story, but I wanted to say one very important thing, which is, as me and Adam, we are not Jamaicans, and our cultures are very different from Jamaican culture, and we were involved of telling a story from Jamaican music history. That was a big challenge for us to persuade people that they knew the story or people that they are from Jamaica, to actually persuade them that this story is legit, we know what we are doing. So it was the most challenging thing as an illustrator, and I'm sure for Adam as a writer. I will not say more. I will hand you to Adam. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Constantinos. And hello, everybody. Greetings from England, from Brighton on the south coast. Can I just ask something? Can you all see me? Am I on the screen? Because I can't see myself.
I think they see you. They see you fine.
They see me. Great. Okay. Could you just go back one slide, Constantinos? Yeah, just keep it there for a minute. Okay, well, the loose theme of this talk is about following your passion and creating your own passion project. Because that's what, between us, Constantinos and myself, have managed to do. We've managed to create something which is kind of right at the heart of who we both are and our interests and our long-held passion for music. So as you can see in the image, there's Don Drummond in the foreground, and in the background there's a woman, that's Margarita Mahfood, who was Don Drummond's lover or girlfriend. And this is a very dramatic, powerful story of two people who were brought together through fate, or whatever you want to call it, and how it descended into tragedy and disaster, but leaving behind an incredible legacy of creativity and, well, great music, which is still very much celebrated and followed and collected 60 years later. So a little bit about myself. I do have a background in journalism, although it's not something that I ever really kind of settled into or particularly enjoyed. And I guess I'm one of these people that we say in England, you know, like I'm a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. I was always looking for something that I didn't even know if it existed. I felt like everything I tried to do throughout my life, I was like, this is not really it. And it's kind of, it'll do for now, but there's something else. And I never knew what that something else thing would be. And I remember hearing over the years, people here and there would say, oh, if you don't know what to do in life, if you want to connect with your passion, ask yourself, what did I like to do when I was a child? And some of the things I liked to do as a child I was into comics. So I used to read Snoopy, like Charlie Brown books, the Peanuts books by Charles M. Schulz. I was really crazy about them when I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I had like a collection of like this size collection of about 50 books. I spent all my pocket money on these comic books. And then in England, we have these comics called there's a series of them. They're like the Beano and the Dandy, and they were always considered to be kind of trashy. If you weren't allowed to take them to school, that you would have them confiscated at school. And I think it's interesting that something that's happened with comics in the last sort of 20 years is something that does often happen with art forms. They go from being considered like trash culture, like comics in America were always printed on really cheap paper because people thought you would just throw it away, it wouldn't last, so it was considered junk, really. And now comics are called graphic novels, and they've become respectable, and now you can do a degree in it and become a professor or whatever and teach at a university, and it's all very respectable. But it's just comics. It's still pictures with thought bubbles, but it's become somehow legitimate and a respected art form. And now all those trashy junk, so-called trashy junk comics sell for an absolute fortune, and there's a big collector's market. So things have a way of going, what goes around comes around. So I think it's a really interesting time for graphic novels right now. The whole world seems to be catching up with France and Japan, who have always been decades ahead in the industry. So yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about the story, Don Drummond, and how I got to be telling this story. So Don Drummond was the founder of a band called the Skatalites, who are a kind of almost mythical, legendary band from Jamaica in the 1960s. They are only actually in existence for about a year and a half, but they pretty much created or invented ska music. They are like the godfathers of ska, and he was one of the founder members. I just want to say something about ska music itself, because I know that not everyone knows what it is. I get asked a lot, well, what is ska even? So I'll just say that ska music is the precursor to reggae music. It's what gave birth to reggae music. So reggae music is all centered around the offbeat. So it's a music that it's kind of rhythm and blues turned inside out. It's very different to traditional like 4/4 time music, and ska was where that started. So I don't want to go too much into the musical theory, but in a nutshell, in the late 1950s in Jamaica, they were playing American records on great big sound systems, these giant big speaker boxes, and they were playing American rhythm and blues records. And at the heart of American rhythm and blues is the 12 bar blues rhythm, which is kind of dumba 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 dumba. Right, you all know that kind of thing. in Jamaica, they were looking for their own sound. They were about to claim independence from the motherland, Britain. So they were looking forward for something to kind of celebrate that moment. And out of that rhythm and blues, it was like they discovered an invisible rhythm, sort of hiding in that 12-bar blues. They softened the 12-bar blues that I just described, and they found this kind of hypnotic pulse, which kind of went so it's a kind of like a hypnotic beat, and it makes you dance funny. It makes you dance like you're kind of walking through glue, or walking through mud on the spot. And when they unleashed it in Jamaica, it was just like this massive explosion. It was a dance craze. So it literally, in the space of like a few months, that ska was all over Jamaica. So they'd actually been trying to copy American rhythm and blues, their own style of it, and then they found this, and it was like everything changed in Jamaica. And the Skatalites came together to take ska to that next level. They were like a studio band. There was a studio called Studio One, and they were the house band at Studio One. They were backing other artists like early Bob Marley music, people like Jimmy Cliff, Desmond Dekker, Toots and the Maytals, and many others. But they would also record, so they would do these long sessions that would go on all day. They would record like 12 songs in a day. And at the end of the day, if they had time, they would record their own instrumental jazz tunes. And they would be released as singles. And they became like legendary in their own right as instrumental ska jazz musicians. And myself, growing up in England, we have a strong connection to Jamaican music in the UK. England became the second home of reggae in the 1970s really, but from the late 60s, because we had a lot of West Indians coming to live in England in the 1950s onwards, and they brought with them their culture, they brought their music, and they brought these big sound systems. So they introduced this kind of party culture to England, which wasn't always welcome if you were living in that neighborhood. But to the people that like music, it was like the most exciting thing ever. So a lot of white English kids gravitated towards it and got swept up in that culture. I was a bit young for it. I wasn't even born when that was really happening. But like a lot of English kids, I got into punk rock music. And in the 1970s, there was a real crossover between punk rock and reggae. And that's how I discovered Jamaican music. A lot of UK punk rock bands started playing reggae music, and the kids who were into it were listening to Bob Marley and other reggae stuff. And then we had this thing that happened at the end of the 70s, the tail end of the 70s. We had this big ska explosion. And from there, it was like a punk ska revival. And that launched me into my own lifelong passion for ska music. And I discovered the original Jamaican ska. Constantinos, do you want to just move to the next slide? Okay, so we are currently, this is issue 1 of the story, Barefoot Boy. We're currently one episode in. We're serializing the comic book. We're doing it as a comic book series rather than a full graphic novel, simply because comics are really expensive to create, and as a crowd, well, we crowdfunded it, and as a crowdfunder myself, I didn't have the confidence to go for raising enough for a full-length graphic novel. So we've serialized it. It's going to be seven issues, 7 episodes. Yeah, but just getting back to the Skatalites story, which is what the heart of this is, that I discovered that the Skatalites all went, well, 4 of them went to this school in Jamaica called the Alpha Boys School. And I kind of became obsessed by this story. Particularly, there's a nun called Sister Ignatius, and she ran the music department in the school for like 65 years. She was the head of the music. And the boys there, they were kids from like the slums of Kingston, like, you know, the poorest of the poor, some of them, coming from shanty towns. And there was a lot of crime, there was a lot of social problems. And this school run by Roman Catholic nuns, for a lot of them, it kind of saved them from a different life. And so I became sort of fascinated by the character of Sister Ignatius, but particularly the character of Don Drummond, who was the trombonist in the Skatalites. And there was just rumors and hearsay about Don Drummond back in the 1980s when I was getting into this music. We knew very little, obviously no internet, there was no books on him. And we just heard that there was something really bad happened, that he'd gone insane and that he'd murdered somebody, he'd murdered his lover, and that she had been a dancer called Margarita. And that really shocked me. I was very disturbed by that. And then I discovered that this dancer, Margarita, had released a song. And somebody I knew had this Jamaican single, 7-inch single, with her song on it. And it was a very unusual, strange song. It didn't really sound Jamaican, it sounded more African. So I became intrigued by her. And Cos, do you want to just move the slides on to, so yeah, this is an early sketch by Constantinos of Don Drummond. But if you go to the next one, please, Constantinos. So sometime in the early 2000s, I never lost my passion for ska. I got into all kinds of other music, but I always loved the Skatalites. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, out of the blue, this book appeared on Don Drummond. Don Drummond, The Genius and Tragedy of the World's Greatest Trombonist. And the story was just so absolutely mind-blowing. Heather Augustyn, who'd written it, she dug deep. And I just felt like it was worth the wait, all those years of not knowing anything about him. And it had movie written all over it. And so I was really, really grateful that this book just appeared and filled in all the blanks for me. And then a couple of years later, I had the opportunity to record, to film a reunion of Alpha Boys, old Alpha Boys who'd been to that school, who were doing a show in honor of Sister Ignatius, their musical mentor, in London. And I recorded this show. And I tried to make a documentary about it, which didn't happen, didn't materialize. But next slide, please, Constantinos. What came out of that was a book. So here you can see Sister Ignatius in the middle, and then on her right, on the left-hand side, that's Yellow Man, who's an Alpha Boy, and then going around clockwise, that's Lester Sterling from the Skatalites, Rico Rodriguez, who was in the Specials, that's Don Drummond at the bottom, and that's a drummer called Leroy Wallace. So I wrote this book, and I wrote it with Heather Augustyn. So I approached her. She'd written the Don Drummond book. She was the most obvious person when I wanted to tell this story, because I'd interviewed all these musicians, and I had all this great material, but the documentary film hadn't happened. I wanted to do something with it. So I connected with her. We formed this great working partnership, and this is what the result of it was, this book, which is 50 mini biographies of musicians who came to the school, jazz musicians, ska musicians, reggae musicians. And then a couple of years went past, and I was thinking, what do I do next? And out of the blue, in a kind of blinding flash of light, I don't know where it came from, but I had this idea that it would make a great graphic novel. The Don Drummond story would be just the most amazing comic book adaptation. I had no idea how to do it. That didn't, wasn't my issue. It was just like, that's got to be done. So I approached Heather Augustyn and asked if I could adapt her material. And to my amazement, she said yes, which was great. But then there was also a feeling of like, oh no, that means I actually have to do it. And if I don't do it, I'm going to regret it forever. So I better get on with it. So I then taught myself everything you need to know about comics, how to create comics, how to write a comic script, how to crowdfund for a comic. I knew I wanted to indie publish it myself. I was a complete unknown. So I figured that no publisher would probably be interested, and the story is pretty obscure. It's like a niche within a niche. The only people that are going to be into it are like reggae fanatics and ska fanatics, which is a big enough niche to support it, but to convince a publisher, I wasn't so sure. Anyway, I wanted to give the book as much integrity to the truth of the story as I could, so I just decided to do it myself. And then I had the hunt for an artist, and I tried to find a Jamaican artist that felt like the right, culturally appropriate thing to do. Advertised for a Jamaican comics artist. They didn't materialize. So then I started advertising more widely. And that's when I came across Constantinos, and he was already creating these tributes to Jamaican artists, but he hadn't done a comic before. And the one thing I'd been told by people in the comics world was, whatever you do, you're a first-time comics writer. Don't work with a first-time comics artist. You've got to have experience, because otherwise it will be like the blind leading the blind. But I knew that Constantinos, like, he was already living in the universe that I wanted to create of Jamaica in the 60s and the 50s. So I thought, well, I'm going to give him a go, because he seems to have something. And somebody said, a comics artist, a Black American comics artist, said to me when we were looking at different artists' work, he pointed out Constantinos' work, and he said, this guy can draw ethnicity. And I thought, okay, well, if he's saying it, then I should pay attention. So I'd like to just hand you over to Constantinos, and he can show you some of we've just got a few pictures of the kind of work that he was doing before we connected. Constantinos.
Yeah. So basically, what Adam said, I was already into researching Jamaican music culture, and my intention was to capture that essence in my images. So I started making tributes, illustration tributes to already famous artists from Jamaica. At the beginning, actually, I was I was researching the sound system culture, which I did a series of posters, which eventually record companies from New York, they were interested in. And I felt that, okay, I have a good feedback to keep going. So then I started doing these tributes. So this one is, for those who know, they know. For those who don't, this is Uroi. It's one of the first Jamaican DJs from the end of 60s and 70s.
And for those who don't know, a DJ in Jamaica is like the rapper. He's the guy on the mic. And the guy who puts the records on the sound system, he's called the selector.
Exactly. This one is from that series of posters I did. And this one is Duke Vin. It's one of the first Jamaicans that they moved to London in the 50s and created his own sound system. So we're talking about the first Jamaicans moving into the UK, and they were trying to find places to entertain themselves, but they couldn't because of the racial issues back in the day. So this guy, he's responsible for introducing the places and the entertainment for the people of the day, for the Jamaican community. This one is Jashaka. He's, well, he's a legend in the Jamaican sound system community in the UK. So he basically created an environment which invited black people, but also white people together. So he was a major figure in the 70s in the UK, bringing together the two communities. It was called, obviously, the Zulu warrior. That's why the theme, it's all African and Zulu warriors around him. This is the Skatalites that Adam explained before. It's the big band in the 60s. And this is a tribute illustration I did to honor their presence.
And that was one of the images.
Oh yeah, the next one.
That was one of the images that I just loved so much, and I just thought there was something about that just made me smile. And I once gave a lift to the Skatalites in my old camper van to a show in Brighton from their hotel, and it actually reminded me of, like, I've had the Skatalites in my own little bus. So I really loved this image, and I kind of just knew that we could work together. And despite what I said about people saying don't work with a first-time artist, I think, like, we knew we had a kind of understanding between us, and we both had a level of life experience whereby I think we have a similar outlook on life, and we understand things in a certain way, and that counts for a lot when you're going into a working partnership with somebody. Because what you're trying to do when you're telling a story is to kind of find the truth of a situation. And I can talk to Constantinos about a situation or a scene, and he knows what I'm talking about. So, you know, that's really great. And he always comes back with something better than I expected. So I give him an idea, and he comes back, and it's like, it's often completely different to what I thought, but it's always as good as, or if not better.
Adam, we have 5 minutes.
We have 5 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, go on.
Let's have a look at some of the art.
Yeah.
Let's just go through some of the art and show people what it looks like. Okay, so this is a scene where Don Drummond skips school for the day. He ends up in downtown Kingston. There's a demonstration. He gets caught up in a riot, a political riot. And let's skip to the next one. And then he runs off, and he hears music. And this is where we're bringing, although it's a flashback, and it's in black and white, we're sort of mixing up color as well. And he finds himself, he hears music, and this band are playing Jamaican mento, which is kind of like Jamaican calypso folk music. And he meets these musicians, and he gets taught how to blow on a leaf. This musician gives him a little lesson, and it's like his first moment of playing music. Next slide, please. And then this is Don's grandmother, and she's telling him the story of Anansi, the spider, which is like Jamaican folklore. And I really loved what Constantinos did here, because it's got a kind of retro 60s look about it. And we then used this idea of the spider for the next scene, which was when Don, it's his first night at the Alpha Boys School. He's been placed in this school by the social services, obviously getting taken away, going to school in this place run by nuns. It's a massive big deal. It's also a blackout. It's World War II, and they did have blackouts in Jamaica. So this is his first night there, and this little figure at the bottom with the red head, that's his father, who he's never met. He's having a dream about his father, and then next scene, and then the dream is his father kind of has a metamorphosis. He grows legs and becomes Anansi, the spider, and then delivers Don this sort of very heavy message about life and living and survival. Yeah, so that's a powerful moment in the story. And then this was Constantinos' first attempt at doing it. This was like his audition piece. I said, can you draw this scene? This is when Don's lover, Margarita, has been murdered, and the Rastafarians have come down from the hills because she was very connected with them. They've come down to pay their tributes. Just go back a second, Constantinos. And it was these faces in the middle picture, the looks on their faces were so dignified and there was so much sorrow. I just knew then, it was like, oh yeah, he can really do this. So that was like, he passed the audition at that point. Yeah, next slide. And this scene is, it's the same day as that last one. This is the sound system scene where they're playing Margarita's record, and she's bursting out of the turntable in her spirit form, invisible to the crowd, and she's just filling the space above the shantytown dance hall. And this final one is, this is Don Drummond. He's been found dead. He died at 35. This is him in his cell in the mental asylum. And we're so proud of this image. It took a long time to develop, and he's going up to the heavens. His soul is leaving his body, and he morphs into this hummingbird, which is a recurring theme throughout the story, and the angel of the trombone is serenading him up to the heavens. So I think we've probably run out of time. I don't know, have we got time for a quick question from anyone?
No.
Or do you want to say anything, Constantinos?
No time. Come again?
Do you want to say anything or add anything?
Yeah, no, actually. I mean, you covered everything, more or less. I want to say that there will be a workshop on Sunday about comic illustration. And also, you can find a couple of copies in the front desk, which is the only one left if you are interested. So that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No?
Do we have any more time? Have we got like a minute left? Have we got time for a question? Does anyone want to ask a question?
I believe we were okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Adam Reeves, for the presentation. It's been nice having you here. Hope that next time you come to Cyprus and see you live.